Hello mate, welcome back to the channel. So today we've got an exciting one. I've been looking forward to putting this out. So Mako, who you can see in the middle here, asked me to do a podcast with him. He's another kind of design channel, a PoE creator, and he invited along FirePenguinMaster, who basically went viral when he put up a redesign of skill and item cards, like item tooltips in the game. He put it up on Reddit. People went nuts for it because it was amazing. But today what we're doing is focusing on the reason that we got together. So me, Mako and Fire were in a chat on Discord, and we got chatting about enemy codexes and why there isn't one in PoE. So we set ourselves a challenge. We basically said to each other, right, you've got a week, come up with whatever you think, and then we'll present it to each other. So this video is going to be me presenting to the guys my version of what I think an enemy codex should look like in PoE 2. There's obviously some stuff that could be improved, but you will be the judge. Afterwards, I will talk a bit about their designs, what I learned from them, and in hindsight, what I think could be improved on the design that I did. So stick around for that. And absolutely, at the end, I'll put all the links and stuff in below. You want to check out the full video that's over on Mako's channel. Fire Penguin goes into his item rework and all that sort of goodness. But for now, here is my design of the PoE 2 Codex. For a codex of enemies, as I'm calling it, very uninspired name, but I was like, is it a Ray class codex? I was like, no, because we might go to Oriath, who knows, right? So true. I really love trading card games. I don't play Magic, but I love it from a design point of view, and the idea of collecting things. I was a Yu-Gi-Oh collector and a Pokemon collector and that back in the day when I was younger, and I could see myself, I hope GGG make a trading card game at some point. I would absolutely love that. Shiny Piety, I reckon, would be the most valuable card in the world. For me, I really wanted to lean into this like card idea that we're collecting a codex and a deck of all of the, enemies, the 600 plus enemies, 100 bosses in the game. And so this is when you open up the UI, let's say you just hit, C on the keyboard, right? And you open up the panel, it takes you to this this top level design. And this is essentially a slightly zoomed in sort of version of the full design. And as you'll see in the middle there below the title, it says current location and then the defiled cemetery. And the idea here is that I imagine from a game sort of usage point of view, you're most likely going to want to find out the enemies in your location. And this kind of then gets into like a game loop and a game mechanic element of it, where I thought it could be really interesting. Instead of having to go into the wiki, you could just hit this button and it shows you what enemies of your knowledge are showed up in this area. So to break that down a little bit, you'll see on the bottom of each of the cards, there's kind of an XP bar. And it's quite a nuanced system, I think, and I don't want it to be a really deep system, but the idea was that the more you kill each of these enemies, the more XP you gain towards this bar, and the more experience. There's 3 kind of breakpoints that you can see on the design there. Each time you hit one of these breakpoints, it reveals more information about this enemy to you. So of course you could just log out and go to the wiki and find out stuff, right? But this is about like making it feel like it's in the game. It's just quick hat. You load up a map and you're like, okay, who's in here, kind of thing. On top of that, there's the kind of information that you can reveal are the icons that are kind of shorthand showed in the top left, top right, and bottom right corner here. So the bottom right I'll start with, which is the pack size. So this is kind of stolen from like the All Flames, the Necropolis experience, is the idea of roughly what's the density of this type of monster. And that's kind of 1, 2, or 3 tiers. So on the bottom left, you see, okay, you're going to get a load of these sort of like snapping erratic gnarlfishes, right? And they're like your squibs. And then on the right-hand side, you've got a unique enemy example, and they are going to be 1 of 1. So you see that they're just a single enemy there. In the top right, we have the green outlined element, and this is kind of going out a palette, but I wanted to really clearly shorthand show, okay, the top right is showing their vulnerabilities. So this is their lowest resistance or resistances, and gives you a shorthand of, okay, what's this mob weak to? And on the top left, you have their damage type. And just as we've seen with bosses, there's the little icons in the PoE 2 demos and things, you're getting to see what damage they're going to be doing to you. Just to look at the sort of frame and the full window to zoom out a second, then we've got in the top left, we've got search, of course, if you want to search a specific mob. We've got view toggle options, so you can go in card form by default or list form. And then we've got sorting, and I've sort of opened up the sorting panel there as if you'd clicked into it, and that then allows you to sort by a few different things. You can sort the cards that way. On the right-hand side, in the top right, you've got filters. Currently, it says they're inactive. You don't have any filters active. And this is probably a good time to then move over to the second screen. You can see in that top center, so if you flick between the two for a second, you'll see essentially on that top center panel below the title, you've got the current location and your codex. And all you have to do is click the arrow on each side to move across to each. So now this is representative of your full codex. Every monster in the game, if you wanted to sort of have a in hideout look at, specific things or whatever. Still, we've got all the same elements, but now you can see the filters tab is opened up and that's popped out. And then you've got a few options there. You can filter by type, which will be like subtype and then subtype of that subtype. So, like humanoid, undead, zombie, right? Would be like the 3 tiers. So you've got types there. You've got rarity. So there's basically 2 types of rarity. Maybe there would become more. That would be dependent on how they wanted to do it. But you've just got normal mobs that could be normal, magic, or rare. And then you've got your unique enemies. Your progress, you can filter by how far along in the experience gain am I with them, in case you're trying to do a catch-em-all kind of completionist thing and you wanted to hunt down specific mobs. And then you've got location, and you can filter by essentially maps, campaign. You could go to town with this, and then filter by content type as well: delve, incursion, delirium, different things like that. And then here, obviously, you can see they're sort of zoomed out a little bit, and you'll notice there's these like unknown tabs, right? And this is to create that card collection sense of, like, here we've got them filtered by alphabetically by like less than tier 1 sort of experience, or just over tier 1 or whatever. Doesn't exactly match up, but the idea being that like it's showing you all the cards you don't have. It's showing you there's more to explore in the world and there's more enemies out there and stuff, and just creating that sense of kind of that trading card sense of collection. I would love to add like more ornate graphic framing to this and stuff. That would have been the next thing I did if I had more time, probably. But I think from a design point of view, it's not super relevant right now. And then if you flick over to screen number 3.
I have a question before we...
Yeah, go for it.
For example, what is the chest, the little chest?
Oh, yeah, great shout. Yeah, I should have stopped for notes on this. So the chest icon in the bottom left is to show specific mob drops. So for unique bosses that have unique drop pools, instead of having to go to the wiki to find, Shaper drops Shaper's Touch, right? This would essentially open up a tooltip, hover over, and then you can, like the new tooltip system that they've got, you can click into the tooltip and see the item potentially. Or maybe you can't and you literally just get to see the name of it, depending on how kind of gamey they want to make that, how much information they want to reveal.
At first, I thought it was like a reward for getting the card. Like, okay.
No, but one thing I would say is that I have forgotten as well is if you do complete your experience on a card, then you get the foil version of it. That's an obvious win, right? Yeah.
Wait. What if you actually...
Sold.
That's sold. Take my money.
So what if actually in the game there's like super rare monsters that happens one in... Maybe you find one every league, at one every single league, and then you find like a monster like all golden, and when you kill it, you got like a special drop, and you unlock the holographic card which has movement, and then every single league you can like build up like a super collection with all your shiny findings.
Oh, interesting.
I see.
He's one of those that spawns, though. He's going to be on the other side of whatever corpse is deading, and I'm going to watch him run away from me as I have to relog.
But you get the card.
100%.
It would be really cool to essentially thinking multi-league now for like us like decade players, right? Who are like, do you know what? Like, it's that. So you could essentially, what would be really cool is if you had 2 tiers of foil, right? So you had your animated, really high quality, maybe every
we are going
league,
Korean here.
GGG only have to. Well, yeah, they definitely don't put money on it, right? It's not to do with money, but what if every league they put 5 into each league, right? So that so that you could find those 5 each league, but you couldn't get all of them that league, and it was kind of like a challenges system or something. You could even tie it to challenges, and you could really go down that rabbit hole and then say,
yeah. But I think it's super nice having
system.
That meta progression seems super fun for the old timer. It's like some extra things to show off.
100%. I love stuff like that. Yeah, why not, right?
Yep.
And yeah, you could have your completed version, and then you could have your super rare foil that stays on your account, and it's kind of a bit of a flex, like winning the battle royale and getting the rower Spitfire roast thing. Right? Like that was such a vibe.
I have the shitty one, the small one.
Yeah.
I don't think I got any of them.
Oh,
brutal.
God damn it.
So this was the second sort of version of that, and then is this if you just go on to number 3 for me.
Okay, let's go.
So then this is basically what happens when you click on one of the cards. So what I'd imagine was you have, when you're in the interface, you're hovering over the cards whilst they're in that card list form. There's that hover animation where the card's kind of floating, it floats up, and as you move your mouse around, it sort of wiggles around and stuff, like you see in a lot of web UI. Mm-hmm. When you click it, it sort of flips around and then expands out. So there's actually like an animation to the UI.
It's like the back of the card.
Exactly. It's like the back of the card kind of thing. It's like 2 sides to a card. And then on the left here, you can basically see the information system that's tied to the XP is shown here. So it's a very simple stat sheet, like that I've sort of ripped the base of it from the game itself. So you've got your key defensive stats on the top. You've got your your resistances, and then you've got the damage type and the vulnerability. And you can see on the bottom, I've labeled what each tier kind of unlocks. And this would need some fine tuning and sort of could be changed as sort of seen fit. But on the very bottom, underneath the model, if you move down to the bottom right, you can see there that, okay, well, once you get to tier 1, you unlock the core defensive stats, then you unlock the resistances and the vulnerabilities, and then finally you unlock the damage type. And that just adds a way to, like, again, it's in game, you're learning more about these mobs as you're playing up against them, and this very specifically ties into the reason that the panel, when it first opens, looks at the enemies in the local area, because I think it's trying to make this semi-useful, and so that you're not going to the wiki. One thing that I haven't put on here is there should definitely be, I think, a wiki link direct from in-game, so you can just click a button, probably in the bottom right there, or maybe the title of the mob or something, and it takes you to the wiki if you want. And then you've got the damage types and vulnerabilities on the left-hand panel, and then you've got a description, just some fluff text. If they really wanted to go out, they could sort of get an AI audio Deckard Cain, train a model on Deckard Cain, get him to read it out to you. I say, child, like go really into it.
Or just pay juices to do the voice.
Get juices.
Salutation, Exile.
Yeah. And then, so the idea with so you've got the model, and that would be a live sort of animation loop, just like an idle loop or something like that. And the background is relevant to the mob type. So, if it's undead, there'll be some sort of crypt, very low opacity crypt background. And then on the bottom right, you can toggle the audio if you want to hear what the mob sounds like, as it's sort of just, again, like a loop. Or you can click the magnification, that will toggle between isometric view and sort of model view. So in this view, you can sort of panhandle around the 3D model, because we know they've sort of got these in the asset pipeline to a high resolution now. There's a uniform quality of all of the mobs that would make this viable. And then when you click into the magnifying glass, you can actually see it in an isometric view in some sort of dummy environment. And that just allows you to then recognize it from what we're used to seeing the game as. So that's it. And then you just click off, you'd have a little X button, but I didn't do the X button. Sorry. You're stuck in this forever. And that's it. The game crashes.
I have a question. How are we going to actually hear the sound of the monster when we are like watching a YouTube video on our second
I would ask Jonathan. You know, just DM Jonathan and just see what he has to say about it.
No, man. I mean,
you just have to the time when you click that button to when that monster makes a noise in the video you're watching.
The idea is that it's off by default and then you click it, right? Like that's the actual idea. But no, I get the jest. Yeah, it's like something no one pays attention to, but it's a nice idea. I think, you know.
I think that like enhance the actually work that people put up on the game that most people don't never see. Like it happens, for example, there's a guy in GGG that is designing these 3D models for the characters, and then you have like the anisometric view, and you kind of, it's not that you lost the detail because it shows, but there's so interesting stuff. For example, the amount of bones that you can see in the rib cage, you're never gonna see that on the anisotropic view.
Yeah,
there's a lot of work that this kind of interface like brings up, which is super interesting.
Yeah, it's almost like you imagine that like they're like sprites, right? And like they're actually not 3D assets, and we're just seeing essentially like 8 different 30-degree cones of the same model. It's really nice to see the models up close. Just celebrate all the hard work everyone's doing, right? It's like on the table.
Man,
so that's it.
This is amazing, man. I love every single detail in this one.
Cheers, man.
Yep.
Thanks. Yeah. What do you guys think? Come on, be brutal, rip it apart. You know, I'm open to the critique.
We can rip anything apart. Anything. Nothing is safe. Nothing is safe.
Great stuff.
But no, it's great, this one.
I've got a long list of things that I immediately want to copy and paste into my concept.
Perfect. That is the absolute biggest compliment that you could pay me. So I'm flattered.
Actually, filters is something that I think is super useful. All the concept about collecting things I find super interesting. I wish I thought about that. Actually, I thought that the resistances work the other way around. Like when I see red, I'm thinking that that's a weakness of the monster.
Good point. Yeah, I went back and forth on this many times, and I actually think still there's probably a better way to show this, but I was thinking weakness of the monster. Danger to you.
Yep.
And then green being, this is good for you, you know, number go up, kind of green number good.
I think the problem is that because it's so on top of the monster, it like connects directly to the monster and not yourself. Maybe that's why.
Good point.
But
really good point.
But this is amazing, man. I want to collect so many cards now. God damn it.
Yeah, it's like definitely filling out a little personal dream of mine that, you know, if we're not going to get a table, you know, a trading card game, then maybe we get one in the game, you know. The only the realistic kind of issue I see with this, beyond obviously the work to put this together just as a system and stuff, is generating the splash art for all of these enemies. I'm sure they probably had concept art, especially for key enemies and different things, but I imagine the 3D artists were probably just churning through models and just like they were kind of doing a lot of the concepts themselves, maybe. I don't know that. I don't know the internal process, but maybe the splash art would be a pretty big resource hog. But yeah, apart from that, I was like, I think maybe it's pretty doable, right? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that they have splash art for everything. Remember, every time we see like a league launch, after a couple of weeks they post like the art direction for the concept of the league, and you have like, I hate to say this, but they look so much better in the art. Every time I see like an MTX or something, when you go directly to the concept where it was based on, it looks so fucking sick. Then in game you have like obviously the limitation. This is like, for example, being an architect that you like everything is a pool and there's no columns. Then came like the engineer and it's like, what the fuck is this? Like it's hovering over the nothingness. Like
yeah, for sure. That's a good analogy, man.
Yeah, art is pretty free. Then you have to implement it. Come
on then, who's up next? Because I feel like, you know, I've done my bit, and now I'm getting to see. That's just boring to me because now I want to see the stuff that you guys have come up with.
I think Fire Penguin is your turn now. Let's see.
I too kind of took a.
All right, well, that was a lot of fun. Hopefully you enjoyed the concept. Obviously, if we had more time, we'd love to put some PoE themed, kind of that ornate sort of Roman statue framing around everything. I think there's definitely some work to be done. And this is what I wanted to talk about now is what are the things, knowing their designs and in hindsight, would I love to add more? And I'll give you a sort of very brief idea of a couple of bits that they've done. But of course, at the end of this video, go and watch the full thing. It was an amazing talk because we didn't just do this Codex design. Jonathan, FirePenguinMaster, he also showed off his whole thinking around the item reworks, and you can go view that on Mako's channel. But what was it that, I think could be improved on? Okay, so talking about Mako's, the first thing is Mako had this thing where he had like a click more button that showed you the entire in-depth stats of every enemy. And I think this was just it's a super simple thing to add. You just had a in detail button, and then it opens up the full stats and shows you. And this is for things like specters. Instead of having to scrape the wiki, you could essentially just pull this data from the back end. They obviously have all this data, structure it into a template, and then let the system just feed that. And so that's if you're wanting to do minions or specters or something like that. You're just getting this full in-depth knowledge. So that was the first thing from Mako's that really stood out to me. And then just a really simple thing that Mako did quite nicely was just having little pop-ups and things when you're in game that would give you information that, oh, this has been added to your codex and stuff like that. Very simple, very obvious, but not something I had time to touch on. Finally, Mako did a really good job of just showing the skills. So every enemy has, a different kind of group of skills, and then you could hover over those and then see what type of damage they were doing, the cooldowns maybe, and different things like that. So that was helpful. And I think talking about skills, actually, that's a perfect segue over to FirePenguinMaster's designs. He had this whole system that was the whole concept of the design was that it was a journal for your character. It was really nicely done. And the idea being that instead of having the XP system, like I had in mind, where you just kill more mobs and you build up this bar and unlock information, he had a similar kind of information system, but it was much more, I think, intuitive and immersive. And that was, you got the core stats of, each of the different enemies that you're up against. But as those enemies hit you with different skills, that's when you then unlocked the information about the skill. So say his example was with Katava, and say Katava hits you with X-Blast, then you would then know that, okay, that's what that does, and you would gain that information in your codex. And the same went for elemental resistances. So if you've hit an enemy with lightning damage, then you would discover their lightning resistance, because your character would be going, oh, that's not as effective as I thought, or oh, I can see that's really effective, and then you jot that down in your journal. That was the idea. And it's just a really, really cool kind of automated but very immersive design concept from the ground up. So that was really cool. So I would definitely sort of steal that idea. I think that's just a way better way of doing it, instead of having this generic kind of very gamey just bar. And then if you got rid of that bar, then how would you sort of level up to get your foils and stuff in the system that I made? Because I really do like the kind of still trading card element of it, this collecting cards. So I thought, well, instead of having an XP bar that fills up, you could just have very specific challenges. So for maybe, regular mobs, it would be, okay, once you've killed a rare version of that mob and you've killed 100 normal versions or something, then you get the kind of foil, the shiny version. But for uniques and things like that, you could have very interesting, unique things based on the enemy. So it could be something like, you've had to kill them without taking more than half your life as damage. Or it could be, you've killed them at their highest level. So once you kill each of the map bosses, which is the area bosses reimagined in their full power, that's when you get the shiny. And so it's a collector's thing. So alongside that, I think it would be really interesting to have other little versions of the cards. So maybe if you kill it in hardcore, you get, a little tab or an extra icon, kind of like jungle cards in Pokemon or something like that, right? Where it's okay, you've done this on hardcore, so you get this extra outlining or something. And I think finally a thing just to make like, you know, really crystal clear and is clarified for me over time thinking about this is you would want this to be account wide, right? So all of these things, this is like a big meta account progression thing where you're discovering things about the game. And so as you as a player literally is discovering more about the game, so is your kind of account or your characters, the information or encyclopedia they have access to is, you know, more and more available. This kind of goes into systems, I guess you see in things like Star Wars The Old Republic, where you have this like family lineage system, and there's lots and lots of games like that that have this kind of like Legion, family kind of, you know, idea that you're passing down information from character to character somehow. I think this like idea of building a codex is really cool. So here is a quick update to the design. As I've been talking about, having looked at some of their stuff, I wanted to incorporate skills into it. So what we've done is added a skills and mechanics section. Rectangular diamonds show off specific skills, and as you can see, we've got a tooltip where we're hovered over here for infectious bite, and just like any player skill, it's showing us all the information that we need to know, and that could actually be scaled with a little level drop down. We can see here we've got level 72. You could drop that down and then bring that down to different levels, just if you wanted to scale the damage and see how that affects them at different levels. And then on the right, we've got these circular areas where we would have passive tooltips, and so you can see on the right here we've got swarm as an example of this, and this is to focus on monster behaviors. I thought of this when I was reflecting on it. In PoE 2 they're trying to make a lot more out of monster behaviors, group activity, and the AI of the enemies being quite sophisticated, and so being able to understand a little bit about that would be great. So the example swarm, when 5 or more dread zombies are within 8 meters of one another, their speed is increased by 50%, and I thought that would be an interesting thing to know. Also, I think the remaining things to do on this design, there's probably a lot more to update, but you could get rid of the XP bar completely and then use a system much more akin to what FirePenguinMaster was talking about, where you actually learn about the enemies based on the skills that they've used against you and also the damage types that you've done to them. Not only that, I think this then could be a space at the bottom here to show you specific challenges that you wanted to get your, you know, your specific foils or what you needed to complete to essentially get the shiny version, unlock the shiny version of the card would be cool. And finally here we've got a button down on the right here, which is like Mako's design, where you click on this information button in the bottom right corner, and then it gives you a full breakdown of all of the information that you could ever want to know about that enemy. And that's in case you really wanted to dig deep into minion stuff and use these guys for specters. So that is an update to the design. That's the video, guys. I hope you like the idea. Definitely check out the full video. The other guys' designs were amazing. Mako's felt right at home in the game immediately. It was obvious that it would just fit into the game. It was very elegant and simple. Elegant, there we go, guys. There's the catchphrase. And I think FirePenguinMaster was just an absolute crash course in how to design something immersively and make it feel kind of characterful, artistic, but impactful, and just like felt at home, not because it felt familiar to PoE 1, what we used to, but it would just be elevating. It was like an evolution, and kind of what they're trying to do with everything in PoE 2 from what they say is, you know, really trying to push the bar. So definitely go check those out. Check out the full thing if you want to. And yeah, definitely subscribe to Mako if you like his content. Mako has some very similar kind of content to me, creating different ideas and conceptualizing stuff, different league ideas he's done in the past. So yeah, definitely check him out. We've spoke a lot in Discord, and yeah, I get along with him really well. He's definitely a friend of the channel, so send him some love.
When you kill a monster, the first thing you'll see is this one. It's the clip exile, okay?
Oh no.
Oh, man. All right, friends, exiles, we're going to be back to our regular programming tomorrow with more Ascendancy designs. That's going to do it for this one. I'll see you in the next one. Ta-da.